Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my podcast series devoted to the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. Please don't forget to like what you hear and hit subscribe. I have such sights to show you. The Man Who Lived Again, 1936. Originally, Boris Karloff was to follow up his role in The Invisible Ray with another film for the esteemed Michael Balcon's Gaumont British company back in England, with whom he'd made The Ghoul. This was to be Dr. Nicola, but the increasing sensitivity of the British censors meant that the script was considered too shocking for the public. Rather than be paid off, Karloff's high-powered agent Myron Selznick, David O. Selznick's brother, arranged a replacement movie, which slotted in after The Walking Dead. This was to be The Man Who Lived Again, known in Britain as The Man Who Changed His Mind. The latter title for the British market has a touch of whimsy about it, as does the film. It centers around a mad scientist, Dr. Lawrence, self-proclaimed greatest authority on the human brain, who perfects a way of extracting the thought content from the brain to be stored and transferred into another subject, like the modern downloading of computer data. Rather than descend into grim horror, the tone is at times almost playful, yet never spoils the entertaining daftness of the material. Indeed, it's a spoonful of sugar that helps the ludicrously hard-to-swallow plot palatably go down. This was largely due to Karloff's director, Robert Stevenson, whose light touch from here went on, as you might guess, to sprinkle Disney stardust over Mary Poppins, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and two of the Herbie films. The script by John L. Balderston, Sidney Gilliatt, and L. Dugard Peach wasn't finished when Karloff reported to the studio, so he and his wife Dorothy amused themselves with the London theatre and socializing until Stevenson was ready for him in March of 1936. The part of Dr. Lawrence is bereft of any unsightly disfigurements for Karloff. He looks normal, albeit with a restless chain-smoking habit and the simmering arrogance of all misunderstood geniuses. He recruits surgeon Dr. Claire Wyatt, Stevenson's real-life wife Anna Lee, whose scalpel is presumably as precise as her grating received pronunciation of the period. She nearly comes as a pair when her overprotective boyfriend Dick, John Loder, insists on trying to stick to her at every chance. To offset the threat of cloying lovey-doveyness, there's Donald Calthrop as the waspish Clayton, Lawrence's wheelchair-bound assistant. While he waits for hopeful treatment for an intracranial cyst, he serves as his boss's King Lear fool, mischievously telling truth to power. Wyatt is appalled when he demonstrates his breakthrough amidst twiddling dials and crackling strobes to swap the minds of two chimpanzees, one calm and the other unstable. During filming, the poor chimps both proved a handful, being untrained and adding to a less-than-savory shoot at the studio's temporary Islington soundstages. Wyatt insists that he cannot play God so ruthlessly. "No, I can't do that," Lawrence agrees softly, looking furtively away with exactly the opposite intent. Aside from the mercifully brief vivisection, remember this is the director who will later delight children of all ages with magical nannies and an anthropomorphized Volkswagen, Stevenson also lightens the load of any ethical arguments to do with the soul until the end. Instead, Lawrence is shown being laughed out of a lecture theatre for the preposterousness of his claims. It's just as well, then, that he has already made a somewhat Faustian bargain with newspaper magnate Lord Hazelwood, Dick's father, played by Shakespearean stage actor Frank Cellier. In return for research funding at the mogul's self-aggrandizing Hazelwood Institute, Lawrence allows himself to be touted like a celebrity columnist of the cerebellum. Hazelwood inadvertently becomes an even more involved benefactor than he would like when Lawrence opts to give Clayton a new lease of life at his expense. Hazelwood forces his employee's hand to some degree by deciding to cut off Lawrence's funding and confiscate all his research under his devilish contract. Cellier is fun to watch in the set pieces of body swap comedy, where he struggles to pass himself off as Hazelwood at an editor's meeting and with his son. Almost trial runs for Stevenson of his later Disney comedy sequences. We even get a dash of naughtiness when Hazelwood realizes his host's relationship with his secretary Miss Briggs is a little more than professional. Hubert Bath's music underlines the quirky, fanciful situations on hand. Lest we spin too much candy floss, events do take a darker turn when Clayton demands that Lawrence rehouse him again, on discovering Hazelwood has a long-standing heart condition. He overplays his hand, causing the scientist to strangle him as a formerly expedient annoyance in favor of Lawrence's next plan, exchanging his own mind with Dick so the young man goes to the chair for his murder and he goes free. However, twixt cup and lip, the cops step in and Lawrence falls fatally from a window whilst escaping. There's just time for a too-brief heroic appearance from the much-loved Cecil Parker to save Dick's life by transferring him back into his own body. To remind us who the star of the picture is, though, Karloff gets to deliver a sobering moral payoff before he dies, telling Wyatt, "You were right. The human mind is sacred." He urges her to destroy his work, with just enough time to wryly note the irony that his potential life extension was only taken seriously by him dying first. The Man Who Lived Again moves well, and is handled knowingly enough for the mostly unbelievable shenanigans to be enjoyed. Karloff also had opportunities to reunite with family members he saw so little of back home, and the chance to strengthen his legacy of working hard in defense of actors' conditions. Stephen Jacobs points out in Boris Karloff, More Than a Monster, that before returning to America he was able to meet with British Equity, their closest equivalent to America's Screen Actors Guild at that time, and was told Equity was definitely in favor of an agreement with the Guild. This was a great boost to increasing professional support on both sides of the Atlantic, sweetened by Karloff's keenness to promote Americans joining Equity when they worked in Britain. A sadder epilogue is that under the tyranny of neutering censorship both in Hollywood and Britain, this was to be one of the last horror films for 2 years, until the unexpected happy resurgence of Universal's second wave rose again into production in 1938. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you've just heard, don't forget to click so, and please hit subscribe. If you build it, they will come.